You're listening to the Gab Street Podcast, Columbus, Ohio's #1 podcast for underground talent. Every week we have new conversations with interesting individuals who contribute to the Columbus economy and its lively culture. You may find just what you're looking for right in your backyard. Let's get right into it. Greetings, Gabsters.
Hello. What's going on?
You don't know who the hell that is yet.
No,
but,
you don't.
It's been another week since last Wednesday. Or, you're probably not listening to it then. Whatever. Another episode's coming out. It's this one. I don't know what number episode this is right now because I don't know when this is actually going to come out. So, that's those are the times we're living in at the moment.
Nobody knows anything right now.
Nobody knows anything right now. Nobody knows when the next time you're going to be able to just go get a cup of Joe and not worry about cough disease.
Cough disease?
There's a lot going on. Nobody knows when hockey's going to come back. I don't even follow sports. I don't know.
Bro, hockey's not coming back. What are we going to do?
Honestly, though, when sports come back, I'm probably not going to have any idea that they came back until, weeks later. Because someone will eventually tell me, but I will not have searched for that information.
You know, I go to OSU, and I didn't know that they canceled football until, Actually, did they?
Oh, yeah, they definitely did.
Did they? Okay, yeah.
They definitely did.
I don't pay attention to it.
So exactly, you don't even know
I would not have noticed if they did it or not. I've been to... Actually, I've been to one game last year.
Yeah. That's funny.
Eh.
This is Gab Street, y'all. I don't know if you forgot what you were listening to, but this is the Gab Street Podcast.
Welcome to Gab Street.
And I have a guest today that I actually have known for a very long time. We started talking in 6th grade, I think. Mm-hmm. Something to that effect. We had a little while where we didn't go to the same school, but we are now both we have now both finished out our first years of college, and we are still bros.
Of course we are.
His name is Emerson Gifford.
Hello.
And he is here, one, because he's my friend, but two, because he is actually developing a game. And I don't know if there are too many other game developers in the city, and if there are, you need to promote yourself a little better. But he's one of the only people I know about that's actually developing games. This is a game that's going to end up going on Steam in the future. Mm-hmm. It's going to... people are going to pay money for it. It's kind of a big deal. We hope you pay money for it. So we're gonna talk about that today. And you might notice that we don't have video today, or we didn't have video last week, depending on what order these come out. We're kind of experimenting with the medium for a little bit now. We're gonna see how this goes, both for editing time, processing time, whatever. We might see this as easier. And frankly, the YouTube videos didn't get that many views anyway. So, here's hoping it works out.
This will work.
First question. How are you doing, Emerson?
I'm pretty good.
What's poppin'?
I'm excited to be... What's poppin'? I'm excited to be here.
Yep.
I've been listening to Gab Street for a while. I've been friends with...
Actual fan of the show.
Actual fan. Yeah, literally.
Found him in the wild.
You just picked me up. I was like, yo, you're that guy from Gab Street. But yeah, so I've been listening for a while. I'm friends with a lot of the people on the show. I'm friends with you and Gage and a bunch of other people. And then a friend of mine and I started making this video game, and Cory just wanted to pick it up. He just wants to take our royalties, and it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I said, I'll give you $10 toward the development of the game, and I want a 100% stake.
Dude, you're not going to make that money back. That's okay. We'll see.
And for those reasons, I'm out. No, just
rats.
I'm just kidding. Just smash that Shark Tank button. So, this might be a difficult question, but what is the title of your game?
So we talked about that before we started the record button.
Yes, the record button.
The record button. I don't know.
You don't know what it's called yet? Okay.
No, that's common, I guess, when the name is one of the last things that comes out of it.
Mm-hmm. You have a working title.
No. it's just that game.
Okay. It's just that game.
Just that game that we're doing. It should be pretty fun. We'll get into more about what the game's about later, but the actual title, we absolutely no idea, and I'm not really concerned about it right now because that will come eventually.
So we're catching you pretty early then, right?
Yeah, it's a few months in, but also while I'm going to school, so I've been working on it like on my free time every night, a couple hours before I go to bed.
Okay. Every night.
Almost every night, yeah.
That's awesome.
It is. In the beginning, I was worried that I wouldn't do it, or like after a few days, just forget about it and not really care.
Mm-hmm.
But we talked about this. It was actually this recording on Gab Street where I was like, okay, well, I have to have something done by the time I go on Gab Street. So that gave me the motivation to actually work on it.
Awesome. Yeah, I am proud of all that's come out of it so far.
Yeah.
It may not feel like much to you, but development, and
mm-hmm.
Putting time into any one thing every single day, even for 10 minutes at a time each day, that's something not a lot of people can do, and it'll
mm-hmm.
end up paying off no matter what.
Oh yeah.
So that's my opinion, at least.
It works.
So very cool.
Thank you.
So what are some video game experiences that you've had yourself from other games that have inspired you to create this?
So a lot, actually. So I've been playing...
Well, first of all, give us a little rundown of what the game's actually going to consist of.
You know what? That's a good thing we should talk about first. So the game it's actually inspired by a friend of mine and I. We both really, really enjoy horror games. And if you ever played a horror game, anybody listening, is that my parents didn't quite understand what a horror game was. I was like, well, it's a horror movie, but it's interactive.
It's when you go to the strip club in GTA 5.
Yeah, it's
game.
Terrifying. Exactly. So it was actually inspired by a friend of mine and I. We did a road trip a couple summers ago to Wyoming to camp out in the Grand Teton National Park.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah, Wyoming technically doesn't exist. Have you ever met anyone from there?
Me neither.
I'm actually not kidding. When we drove to Wyoming, I don't know if I ever saw a Wyoming license plate.
Really?
Like, everyone there is from out of state. Everyone there goes to travel. I don't know if anyone actually lives there. Like, during the coronavirus stuff, when we saw that blip of, like, someone got infected in Wyoming, I was like, how? No one's actually there. How can that happen?
Plague Inc.
Yeah. No, but, I mean, that place is beautiful. The drive was super fun. We ended up cutting it kind of short because a bunch of stuff was happening. But, anyways, when we were driving out there, it took, 28 hours to drive from Columbus to Wyoming, to Jacksonville area.
Yeah.
And we, first of all, because the hotels are expensive, and also the first night we tried to stop in a hotel, they actually didn't let us stay because we reserved it. But apparently in some states you have to be 21 to reserve a hotel.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we were 18. We got there and they were like, sorry, we can't let you stay here. We were like,
sucks.
Rats, that's an issue because it's the middle of the night.
Yeah.
So we just kept driving. And the first time, the way out there, we did find a hotel and stopped. But when we just kept driving, and when we arrived in Wyoming, we had been driving for almost 24 hours. We'd just been swapping back and forth. So we're teenagers, so we can do crazy stuff like that, and we're not going to fall asleep. That was pretty dangerous. Don't ever do that. But when we arrived there, we were driving through the mountains and the forest and stuff, and it was 3 a.m. Super, super dark. I can't really describe it, but just the feeling of driving. You literally have not seen any cars or people for hours. You're driving in the middle of nowhere. There's no town or anything for miles, for hours. And it's just pitch black. You see a light every once in a while, and you don't really know what it is. You think it's a person. And we started just randomly brainstorming. What if this was a game? This would be terrifying, and I love it. So that's pretty much what it is. I can't get too much into the story, because not only would that be kind of a spoiler, there's not that much developed based on that. Most that's been developed is gameplay.
Okay.
The feeling of driving and having scary stuff happening in the middle of the night while you're just locked in this car. So that's pretty heavily what it's about, and I kind of forgot the question.
So we'll get back to this question now that we've established a little bit more of what the game actually consists of. What are some video game experiences from your past with other games that you've had that inspired you to create this? or inspired certain aspects of it.
Sure. So actually what started us talking about that while we were in the car was Cam, my friend that I was with at the time. He was explaining, well, I was not super into video games at the time. Me actually getting into games is fairly recent. Like, I've been playing video games for a while. By video games, I mean, like, I had Modern Warfare on my Xbox when I was 13. But I didn't do anything else. I just played, like, multiplayer. But actually getting into, like, story-based games and becoming a video game player, I guess, started fairly recently. So back then, 2 summers ago or so, I'd never heard of this game he was describing called PT.
Okay.
You've heard of it.
I definitely know about that one.
So for people who don't know about it, PT stands for Playable Teaser.
I thought it was playtest.
I think it's Playable Teaser.
Really? Okay.
I might be wrong, but I don't know. Either way.
I won't debate on that.
Sure, we can fight about that later.
Yeah.
So it's literally what it sounds like. It's a playtest or playable teaser that's like a 20-minute game that was created as like pretty much as an example of what this company could make. There's a whole story behind like why they made it and like the drama between the creator and the company Konami. But anyways, it ended up being
Kojima, right?
Yeah, Hideo Kojima and Konami. It ended up being like a fake teaser or it was a real teaser technically for a new game called Silent Hills.
Yes.
Which ended up falling apart because Konami, the guy who created it, didn't have permission. Oh, I'm sorry.
Kojima and Konami.
Same thing. Not really. But yeah, Kojima didn't have permission to use that title or make that game.
Really?
So he just like created this playable teaser that once you finish the teaser, it took like 2 weeks for people to actually finish it because it was so hard.
Yeah.
Once you finish it, it shows like starring these people. This is the trailer for, or this is the teaser for Silent Hills. Silent Hills is owned by Konami, that game series, and he did not have permission to use it. They had not told him to make it. And so he was like, you know what? I kind of want to make this game. And they told him no. So he was like, watch, I'm going to make this teaser, and everyone's going to love it, and you're going to make me make this game. And then he got fired.
I never knew that was the actual story.
Yeah, so he, well, that's the thing. There's a whole drama behind why he got fired, but basically, Konami was getting into... Konami is like this really, really popular video game company they started in like the 80s.
Yeah.
They have a ton of awesome video games under their belt. Like Silent Hill is a huge one. There's like 5, I think. 4 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
It's an awesome game series. It's a horror game, and it makes them a ton of money. But recently, in the past decade or so, they've been getting into mobile games, which is a sin in the gaming space.
Yeah.
And basically what that means is that like you can make a lot of easy money off of mobile games, like doing cash grabs and stuff like that.
So go ahead and go to your app store and download the new Gab Street mobile.
The Gab Street mobile game.
Oh, God.
It's just like pay boxes and stuff and loot boxes. But anyways, yeah, so like Konami's getting into mobile games and they don't really care about spending millions and millions of dollars on these really, really expensive games. And Kojima, who's the creator of some awesome games, mostly Metal Gear Solid is the famous one that he did.
Very good.
But he wants like millions of dollars, and he wants to get like Guillermo del Toro, a famous director, involved in the creation of this game. And Konami's like, dude, you are requesting millions of dollars for this game that we have no idea if it'll succeed, and we think that you're just going to scam us, so no. And he's like, screw you. He made this secret group of like a couple people that he lied and told his superiors that these people making this game were for like a side quest in Metal Gear Solid. It turned out they were actually making PT.
Wow.
And so he lied to Konami and said, hey, this is part of Metal Gear Solid, the new one. You don't need to worry about it. They're making this game. It turned out that he was making a teaser for Silent Hills and then announced it without Konami knowing, not under Konami's name, just by communicating with Sony and PlayStation. And it came out, no one knew what it was. His name was not on it. Nobody's name was on it. It was just PT. And then at the very end of the game, after you finish, which took people like 2 weeks to figure out, because the puzzles are so hard, then it says Silent Hills by Guillermo del Toro, Kojima, stuff like that.
And I didn't know they actually had that teaser at the end of the campaign of that playtest. So
at the very end, it shows the people involved and the name and stuff.
Wow.
And then like for a while there, people thought like, oh, they might actually make the game because people thought it was a real teaser. And then he got fired right away. There was more stuff in there anyways. But PT is an awesome game. It is like 20 minutes long if you know how to do the puzzles, so it's super short. But it is terrifying. Have you played it?
I have watched people play it before. I'm too much of a little bitch to actually play the game. So, I don't know. That tugs your spine strings a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know what, like, horror games are just awesome in the way of... It's just like horror movies. The reason why people like horror movies, a lot of people ask, like, why do you want to scare yourself like that? It's just cool, because you can get into a lot of, like... memories and stories and stuff. You can tell a lot of cool stories through a horror game by basically scaring people into believing it.
Exactly.
Like, basically the story of PT is that you're this unknown person and you're just walking through this house and you realize it's like a 50s style big mansion house, and literally the entire game takes place in one hallway. You've seen it. And you're basically just trying to like solve this murder. Like, figure out what happened. And you realize after, like, halfway through the game, there's this lady chasing you around the house who happens to be the victim of this murder. You don't really figure out what happens by the end unless you look into it. There's a lot of, like, conspiracy theories about what it actually means. Lore, of course. But pretty much it's terrifying, but also really, really intriguing. I've played it, like, 10 times, and we'll get into more of... what I don't like about it and what I'm trying to bring over to this new game that I'm working on.
Okay.
So that's the biggest inspiration. Kind of got off on a tangent, but
Perfect.
PT is the best example of what I wanted this to be like.
Okay. That's very cool.
It's pretty cool.
Do you have any like ideas of direct import where you'd have like another car following you that you don't know about for a while?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so there are a few things. I'm not going to get super into it because there are some parts that like legitimately would be spoilers.
Okay. Okay.
But there are some really creepy parts that I can't really explain. But like when we saw it, me and Cam driving through the mountains, when we saw stuff like that, we were like, oh my god, that would be an awesome jump scare, or like an awesome like weird feeling of like every once in a while looking in the rearview mirror and like seeing something in the backseat and thinking someone's in there with you, or like a car following you, or there was a stretch of like 10 miles of the road. Probably not 10, maybe a few miles, where it was just one lane because the other lane was doing construction. So you were driving, and if someone is coming your direction, one of you has to move because like you can't, like it's literally just one lane.
That's so freaky.
We ended up not encountering anybody,
yeah.
But I was thinking like imagine if someone's coming at you and they're like not stopping, and other stuff that can get into. There are some other weird parts. One important part from PT that I really want to, I guess you could say, steal or copy or just use, is the scariest part of PT, in my opinion, is the radio. Do you remember that?
I know what you're talking about.
There's the radio announcer, like, so in the game, as you're walking through the hallway, there's like a 50s style radio that's just like this guy talking every once in a while, and he says like really weird stuff that seems like in everyday life it would be completely normal, but is terrifying when you're like actually there. And that was one of the best parts of the scariest parts of driving, is like the radio would be a huge connection to the world.
Okay.
It could explain the story, why you're there, what you're doing, what the enemy could be, a bunch of stuff. So the radio will play an important part.
Forgive me if you aren't willing to talk about this yet, but I know the map was based on something real.
Yeah,
right?
So the map in the game is actually pretty cool because I found a
height map.
Yeah, it's a tool that you can use to take like actual geographic maps from like Google Earth and use them in a game. So literally the map of the game as of right now, of course it can change if it ends up not being long enough or correct. The map in the game is literally like a stamp of what the actual like pathway was.
This is where you actually drove on your road trip.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So when I say it could change, that's because from what I've tested, the road trip that we drove on is not long enough.
Okay.
Like, the road trip that we drove on did take hours, but it wasn't at all interesting. Like, there were some scary parts, but I do want to add a lot of things. Like, off to the side, like some exits, some other ways to make it more interesting and maybe make it longer. But the pathway that we took was literally just like a straight shot. So it will change, but it's generally based on the actual pathway we drove.
Okay. See, I'm already thinking of scenarios that could happen in this, man. Like, you take an exit and you're like, oh, finally we can like go get some gas or whatever, like get something to drink, and then it just turns back into something you've already passed before.
That's like one of the best parts of PT for people who haven't played it, but like Cory's seen it, is you spend the whole time in this hallway in this house, but every door that you go through takes you back to the hallway again.
Yeah.
So you're just going in one giant circle. And that would be an awesome thing in this as well. Like, what if you, like, billboards would be an awesome thing to take advantage of here. Because billboards can be, like, scary if you see them from a while away.
Mm-hmm.
And what if it's, like, something notable, and then you take an exit to go to a different road, and you see the exact same thing in the exact same spot?
Yep.
A bunch of stuff. And there is a story involved in the game, but I don't want to get too much into that yet.
Okay.
But.
Okay. Very cool. The more I'm hearing about it, the more legitimately excited I am for this to come to fruition. This is something I'm not normally a huge horror game fan.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried Outlast a little bit. I play Dark Souls from time to time. No,
it's super scary. That's actually one that I've never played.
It's not a scary game at all. It's just cool. But
it's dark.
It's dark. It talks about souls.
Oh my gosh.
Souls are pretty freaky, man. I'm trying to think of any other games I've played that are like supposed to be scary. It just hasn't really been my thing. But you
have Metal Gear Solid 5, right?
I do.
So that was the one that Kojima made this game called Metal Gear Solid. It's a whole series, and he came out with the 5th one right before he got fired.
Mm-hmm.
In that game, if you do a lot of like the side quests, it drops a lot of hints about like PT, and they're like horror.
Really?
Yeah, they're like, if you look into the lore, there were horror side quests.
Yeah.
Because he kind of tricked his company into thinking that they were designing this like to be a level.
Yeah.
In Metal Gear Solid, there were a lot of levels like side quests and stuff that are very, very heavily influenced by PT.
Damn.
And they're actually scary.
Okay.
If you want to go back and look at that, they're super cool.
Is it like really late game?
Yeah, there's one in specific that was the main like notable part in Metal Gear Solid 5 when Kojima knew he was going to get fired.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a mission in Metal Gear Solid when you have to go and I don't remember exactly what the mission was, but you were told to go erase Kojima's name all over the map.
Really?
And everyone's like, what does this mean? Why are you making me... Or not his name, it's his logo, the Fox logo.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, why are you making me erase this logo? And then he got fired. And it was like, wait, he knew he was going to get fired, and so he's erasing his name from the game.
Dude.
Super cool. If you have a chance, if you're a fan of video games, look into the connection between PT and Metal Gear Solid. It is super cool.
My respect for Kojima goes on such a teeter-totter because that's super cool and super deep, and I have a lot of respect for the foresight to implement something like that into your game. That's kind of like the words of a dying man, you know what I mean, to some extent, at least in that medium. But to then look at UPS Simulator and be like... I'm talking about Death Stranding. To look at Amazon Simulator, Amazon Fulfillment Center Simulator, and Walking Simulator, essentially, with packages on your back, and to just be like, wow, you put a lot of work and money into this, and you got, fucking what's the name of the actor from Walking Dead?
Dixon. That's his character.
Yeah.
Richard.
No.
Norman Reedus.
Norman Reedus.
Yeah.
So you get Norman Reedus involved in your project, and he's just like, what am I doing? Walking? And he's like, yeah, sure. Why? It's such a...
Anyways, for people who don't know, it's the new game by Kojima when he left and made his own game was Death Stranding.
Yeah.
And everything is a metaphor, but this is one of those times when if you make everything a metaphor, nothing makes sense.
Yep.
So, like, I've played the game, I've seen people play it, and I've talked about it with a bunch of people, and, like, you can kind of bring some stuff out of it, of, like, understanding what means what, but it's almost, like, too deep to the point where it doesn't make any sense.
Like, here's an example. When you write a poem in real life, it's based on a real-life object, Mm-hmm. We could talk about... Wow, I'm bringing this back from I might get this totally wrong. I'm sorry, English teacher from senior year high school. But, like if you get like somebody like Coleridge writing a poem about a bird, and then imagine that poem, but you remove the bird, and it's just all the words besides the bird.
Besides the bird.
So they're just talking about the ideas.
That's
what Death Stranding feels like.
Yeah. I mean, it's still an awesome game.
It's not based in reality.
It's not.
At all.
Anyways, I'm excited to see where he goes because I'm guessing like a lot of Death Stranding connects to like a future game because it makes so little sense. Where I'm guessing it's gonna like connect to future games.
Okay.
Because it makes like there's a bunch of weird stuff like in the game to get more stamina when you're like walking. You drink Monster Energy. And it's an actual like
they actually have Monster Energy.
It's a really high definition model of a Monster Energy can,
so
and I'm like,
funny.
so is that just like a cash grab where Monster paid you a bunch of money, or I bet it's some weird metaphor where Monster Energy does something for you, some weird thing. But even though it's a great game technically, I'm really not a big fan of Death Stranding.
That reminds me of how Jurassic World was a Mercedes commercial. Do you know what I'm talking about? Because every single car just had this prominent Mercedes logo on it. And that just makes you think, like, there's no meaning to that. They were just driving Mercedes
They just
around.
wanted a lot of money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I imagine Kojima was like, man, Konami's not paying me anymore. I need something. I need to get Kyle's playing this game. So I gotta grab some monsters.
Good meme.
And they put a monster logo in their game.
There's also weird parts where there's like when you're in your home base or whatever, and your character can like take a shower, and when there's like a fog that goes over you, so you don't see everything in the character.
Mm-hmm.
And
Norman Reedus.
There's a screen that shows advertisements for Norman Reedus' show on AMC.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I'm like, this is in the middle of a video game where Norman Reedus he's the actor, but he's not the character. But you were showing ads for his show from AMC.
Bro, it's not product placement. It's just a statement. It's just a metaphor.
Kojima's the only person that can say that. Like, technically, people were okay with it because, like, it might mean something.
It's about advertisements, man.
Maybe.
It's all about advertisements.
I don't know.
It's Amazon Simulator. They're saying this is what the world's going to look like in 20 years because Amazon's going to take over everything.
Honestly.
The only thing anyone's ever going to be doing anymore is delivering packages to other people that are also delivering packages. So there's no point to it anymore. And there's going to be advertisements on their packages, giving money to people that are also delivering packages.
Dude, you solved it. You
Bro.
solved Kojima.
Bro.
Wow.
So we're all just going... There are going to be 5 people with trillions of dollars. Everyone else is going to be working for Amazon to make pennies a day, delivering packages that those 5 people are buying. But those 5 people live really far apart from each other.
Okay, there you go. That's how it works.
So that I've never played the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good game technically, but yeah, it's crazy.
Oh man. Okay,
Anyways.
we've been talking about that for a long time. But let's see. So let's go a bit of a 180. We have to go in line with the show. Is there anything about Columbus specifically as a city that provides a good foundation for what you are doing?
It provides a good foundation. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of ideas that come from here. For example, everyone involved I met here. Everyone involved is from here. There's music. I'm not going to mention any names, but there are people who are involved in music who...
Some local artist you might have heard on the show?
Maybe. Well,
maybe.
Some people I have contacted, but no one's given yes or no or anything. But, like, everything is from here because all the people we know are from here. But there's a lot of parts that are just, like, scary in general from here that are going to be used in the game, or, like, good story parts.
Like 71's construction.
Exactly that. That's the scariest. High Street never finishing is the scariest thing. High Street is just eternal construction, and that terrifies me to my deepest lengths. Anyways, there are things like one of the most obvious non-spoilery examples is like the sirens every Wednesday at noon. It's not really that crazy. It's just like every Wednesday, my heart jumps out of my chest and I get terrified at noon. I'm just like, what is happening? What does that mean? And then I realize 30 seconds later, like, oh, this happens every week, and I'm just a wimp.
It's the Gab Street alarm to let people know a new episode came out. You gotta
oh,
listen to it.
You're right.
Every Wednesday.
No, but the stuff like that is like weirdly scary in a way that you can actually like use to scare the player. And fear sounds weird. You sound like a creep when you like want to exploit fear for something.
Yeah.
But fear is awesome because you can like the storyline of PT, for example, because I keep coming back to that game, is not that interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that interesting. But then if you add like a fear factor and like a murder mystery to it, and like this person who was the result of this murder in the 50s or wherever year it was, like you are involved and you're somehow in the house, and like that, it's not really that interesting until you add the fact that it's scary. And then if it's like actually legitimate scary, and it's not just some wimpy, poorly made game scary.
Oh, it's all in the execution.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's all in the execution. In both jump scares and just general feeling. And we'll get back into that later because there are some parts of the game that I despise. But the things that you can add from fear kind of make the game better. And that's kind of off topic from Columbus, but that's where you get to like using the tornado alarms that like almost every city has. But that's like one of the biggest parts. Like that is something that will be used in the game. Just general tornado sirens in something like that. I'm not gonna explain it too much, but that's where a huge part of the game came from.
Cool. I think one interesting thing that you could definitely use, at least in my opinion, that siren every Wednesday can both be a sign of bad things to come. It can also be a grounding energy, in my opinion. Because a symbol of routine, because you're like, oh, this happens every Wednesday at noon. If this doesn't happen every Wednesday at noon,
that's a problem.
I am going to freak out.
There's a lot of games that do that, or just anything like books or movies or anything. You see a lot of those examples where something happens on a routine, and then if it doesn't happen, something is up.
Exactly. Yep.
Which is great. That's a good example.
So not only can something new happening be freaky, something old not happening though can be way scarier.
That's true.
So I don't know if you had thought about that aspect yet, but I would love to see that idea employed in the making of this game. Yeah. I think that would be really fun.
That would be great.
What makes this a unique game among the horror genre?
So that's a very good question. One part that I really enjoy about it is, I mean, there's a few things. There have been like driving simulator games where you can't get out of your car, or if you do, there's some things that happen. But one of my favorite parts of this is that, from what I've seen, there aren't any good like driving style horror games. Like when I'm driving at night, I always find something to scare me. Like I don't get that scared like sitting at home alone at night, but I do get scared driving at night just because there are so many weird lights and you don't know what things are, and like I can't see very well. And
especially out in the country sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if there's no one around, because then there's like if you see someone around, that's a problem. So once again, I kind of forgot the question.
That's okay. So what makes this game unique in the horror genre?
Oh yeah. So not only is it just driving style, there are some things in the game that, like I said I was going to get back to this. Some things about PT that really upset me is like I've come back to that game. So actually, technically, I don't have a PlayStation, and that game is locked to PlayStation. You can only play it if you downloaded it like originally before they took it off the store. But
so PS4s with it on there sell for thousands of dollars. Right now.
On eBay you can find ones that have the game installed. A ton of money. Or this is actually, I got it kind of a weird way. There was a guy who remade the entire game from scratch in Unreal Engine, which is an Unreal Engine is like an engine where you build games. He built the entire game from scratch, like every texture, every character, everything, every part of the game completely from scratch, almost identical to what it originally was, and then released it for free on PC.
Nice.
And there's a VR section, so you can use VR.
Yo, that's freaky.
But then
I don't know if I want to do that.
So I mean, you could get it for free, and a ton of people downloaded it. He was supporting it. It was awesome. And then the guy just kind of went quiet, and then came out with a message like, basically he was trying to not say that Konami tried to sue me. But that's what he was pretty much saying.
So Konami didn't want anything to do with it in the first place.
Well, they still own it. They still own it because Kojima made it.
Man.
But anyways, so he took it down. Luckily, there are still some places around the internet where it's on like Google Drive and you can still get it. And so I have a copy of it. If you guys want it, I can deliver it. Hopefully I don't get sued. But yeah, I still go back and play it.
Sued for Gab Street.
Sued for Gab Street. Yeah, so you can still go back and play it. I've never tried the VR part. and now that I have a VR headset, maybe I should, but
Oh, God.
I'm terrified. Anyways, the part that I don't like about the game is that since I've played it so many times, I know all the puzzles, I know all the jump scares, I know where Lisa is the enemy. That's like, not the enemy, that's like the character that's chasing you, the lady.
Lisa? Sorry, I tried to do a Homer impression.
Oh my god. But anyways, that's like, I know where the jump scares are. I know where Lisa's going to be at all times. I know like the scary parts of the game. And because I know that, playing it now isn't scary.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know when things are going to be. I know how to finish the game. The ending of the game is one of the most like intricate. It's like really scary because you have to like walk a certain amount of feet and press certain buttons at certain times to get the ending to trigger.
It's so crazy.
But now that I know how to do that, it's not scary.
Mm.
So one thing that I originally thought that he had coded this in the game is that there's AI, artificial intelligence, that Lisa follows you, basically. It turns out that the character does follow you, but if you're not moving or if you're like not going where they want you to go, nothing happens. So if you're like not going, since I know where it triggers the next parts of the game, if I don't go where the trigger point is, then it's not scary. Like there's literally no scary part to it because I know, oh, the bad guy's not here. Yeah, there's ominous music, but like, so what? Nothing's gonna happen. So one of the best parts of this game is I've been slowly learning how to mess with the AI of characters. In the engine that I use to make this game is it is Unreal 4.
Okay.
And luckily for me, they actually have a really, really easy way to set up AI, where a character can follow you and you can design the way that they move. And so I thought, what if, like, when you feel safe in games, like in PT, you can feel safe because you're, like, walking somewhere, you know something's not going to happen, you can feel safe. What if in this, in moments where you feel safe, where you think nothing's going to go after you, the AI changes, where now it can come at you from a different angle. Now it can come at you when you're not moving. Like, one thing about PT is that Lisa never comes at you if you're not moving. She only will jump scare at you or, like, end the game if you're walking towards her or if you turn around or something or, like, in the trigger points. But in this game, what if you, like, stop the car because you're scared and you think you're safe? But then, like, something can come after you. That I thought was really cool. Because, like, one of the best parts of horror games is that if you're really scared, you can just stop. But that's also one of the worst parts. Because if you're really scared and you stop, that completely ruins the point of the game.
I'm seeing some very real applications for this. So if you were to invest time and or another person into developing an AI that learns your habits.
Have you ever heard of the game Alien Isolation?
Yes.
Do you know about the AI or anything of that game?
No.
That's technically where a lot of this inspiration came from.
Okay.
Because that game, it's based on the Alien movies from the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just from the 90s. I don't remember when they came out.
I don't remember either.
But
we're
anyways,
both Zoomers.
We're both Zoomers, yeah. But anyways, the idea of that game is that the enemy, like the scary part, is the alien in the ship. And its AI is like multi-leveled. It is so complicated, nowhere near what I could code. But luckily for me, Unreal is it's actually kind of easy. But they spent so much time engineering this AI for the character, for the alien, that it knows what you're doing. So in part of the game, for example, you have to go to like this mission control room, and you can see cameras, and you can see like where the alien is. And if you want to trick it, you could like set off an alarm in a room in the corner of the ship. So it goes to the alarm thinking that you're there, and then you can trick it and go the opposite direction, right? Mm-hmm. If you do that multiple times, it learns if something happens, it knows you're in the control room, and it comes after you.
Okay.
Like, it learns based on what you're doing. The thing that we're designing, or I guess I'm designing, is not the same, because it's not going to be as complex as that. It's more of just like, it can come after you if you're not moving. It'll change if you're comfortable, it'll change it. Like if it finds ways, if it finds patterns where you're comfortable doing this thing, or you're stopping your car, or you're going in a certain direction, it'll figure that out and change it.
That's
crazy.
Super cool.
Hopefully it'll end up being cool, but we'll see.
I dig that. Yeah. That's definitely something I would either play or watch. You know what I mean?
Get terrified playing it. Yeah.
And that sounds like also an opportunity for randomization a little bit, because I'm a huge fan of the roguelike genre, personally. Do you know what that is? So a roguelike game is, say, an example is Binding of Isaac, where it'll be a procedurally generated campaign every single time. Has permadeath.
Like No Man's Sky. Not really.
Not quite. I know what you're going for. Almost. God, I wish. Like, I'm like struggling to come up with another example. There's another game called Dead Cells. Basically, when you're playing it, you're never going to get the same exact set of rooms or maps again, or enemy placement. You'll get the same mix of enemies, but it'll be different enemy spots and stuff. So I think that if you were to develop the linear campaign and then go on, like, if you were to create a DLC or something to that effect, or an update where you could turn on like roguelike mode or something, where it's like endless. Cool. You know what I mean?
So that is one thing. Originally, because I mean, if you think about it, in this game, if it's like, let's say it's 20 minutes long, it's going to be a lot longer than that. But let's say it's 20 minutes, and you're driving the whole time. That is a massive map that you have to design and code and figure out like what you're doing.
Oh, for sure.
So originally the idea was to
procedurally generate it.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. I remember you talking about that.
That was the idea, but that is a lot harder than, I guess it seems hard as well. I'm not super excellent at coding, so from what I've done, I can procedurally generate like a 2D environment where like your character's running and blah blah blah. But procedurally generating like a good looking forest with mountains and stuff, with not only that but like textures of a road and like side bearings and stuff like that, and like curbs, not curbs, but you know what I mean, like the side of the road. That does not look good in what I've done and what I've learned to do. So hopefully that could be like an extra addition after I learn to do that better. But in what this is going to be now, it's just going to be one big map with a lot of different branches, bringing you back to certain parts so it seems longer. But generally it's not going to be like one massive line.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with using an area that you've been in before. In fact, familiarity can add a whole new dimension to all of that. So, very cool. We've already talked about how you're getting the music for the game. If you are willing to go into detail on this, describe a scenario from your finished version of the game that you have in your head.
So we kind of talked about it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenarios to come back to is the idea of stopping the car, thinking that you're safe, and then something happening. But one thing that was actually really, it's not scary at all when I explain it, but something that happened to us that was like really scary and could add something to it is not just the radio being involved, but on the side of the road while we were driving, there were like these small lampposts every 100 feet. That was just like a lamp with a light pointing at you, so you can see the road and you can see the turn and all that stuff just like normal. But then every once in a while, like every mile or so, one of them had like something growing on it, whether it be like a plant or like something. It looked, one of them specifically that was terrifying, we almost like literally stopped the car. It looked like a person like pointing a flashlight at you, because there was an arm going up grabbing the light, and then there's like a head-shaped thing. We were in the middle of the night, like 2 to 3 a.m.
That's freaky, man.
Absolutely terrified of it.
Yeah.
So that could be the idea of like you see something like that, and every like you can add AI or procedurally generated lights or something like that. Every 20 minutes or something, when you think that you're going normally and you're in a safe environment, there's like something weird like that. That just makes you kind of uncomfortable. And I know I told my parents about this, and I was like, oh, the game's to make you uncomfortable. And they're like, wow, that's horrible. Why are you doing this? But that's like the idea of a horror game. It's kind of to make you uncomfortable. But I still come back to Resident Evil every time. Even though I've played almost every game a ton of times, I still come back to it because it's a fun feeling. Like being kind of spooked. It's kind of fun.
Agreed. Okay.
It is.
Very cool. So you are working on it with another person?
Yep. Kind of.
Kind of?
Yep.
What are the details?
Elaborate. So yeah, I originally started it with Cam. Cam is my friend that we drove out there together, and so it was kind of our idea together. He's really good at Blender, which is like 3D modeling.
I'm awful at Blender.
Yeah. Well,
it's a tough program.
Yeah, so he's going to school for engineering, and he's actually really good at it. So
cool.
he's good at like Maya and 3D modeling and stuff. Blender's not so exact like that, but it's still fun for making art.
So he's using it to design dams.
Kind of.
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's actually where the branch came from. Why he's not so much working on it. He's still like an influence on it, but it's mostly just me now because he's got a ton of stuff going on. He's actually really, really good at like 3D printing and designing stuff for that. So he's got other projects he's working on. Still love him. But as of right now, it's pretty much just me.
Okay. Cool. Is this your debut?
Yeah, this is my first time making anything like actually serious. I've done fun little games in the past. Like everyone's opened like some cheap gaming software where you make like a 2D character running around or something like that.
Yeah.
But this is the first one when it's actually kind of cool. It's actually something that I plan on finishing.
Okay.
And right now we're using, like I said, Unreal Engine 4. We started with Unity, which is another engine. That just, I ended up not liking it. There's just not that much stuff in it. Unreal is actually made by Epic Games, or owned by Epic Games, the people that own like Fortnite and all those crazy other games. They just changed the rule actually, where originally you could use it for free and then you have to pay at a certain amount. But they just changed the rule where you use it for free until your company makes $1 million off the game. Then you pay, which that's super cool because now I'm not worried about like, oh, I have to use it for 30 days and then pay $1,500 for it.
Yeah.
Now I can use it. I can almost guarantee I will never make $1 million off of a game. But like that's a good incentive. They changed that rule fairly recently.
That's really cool.
That's a good incentive to get people into like using the software and making games.
Yeah.
And then if you happen to make it big, awesome. But
that's called investing in your community.
Yes, it is.
Very nice.
Gap Street.
I do like that. Yes. Support your locals before they go global.
Oh, love that.
That's just how it be. You know? Wow, I totally had something to say about that, and I completely lost it.
That happens.
Yeah, you know, it's just whatever. It's kind of, coffee's running out a little bit here.
Good
but...
host. Good host.
Thanks, buddy. Oh, when you do make $1 million off a game, you'll have this episode to look back upon.
Nice.
So that'll be cool.
Nice.
Nice meme.
My first sponsorship from this episode.
Yes.
Kojima contacts me. I want you in.
You're in. You have no choice. You're working on this game with me. Have you met or heard of any other game developers here in Columbus?
Here in Columbus? No, actually.
Any other, even hobbyists?
Yeah, I mean, hobbyists, there's a lot of people that I'm really, really close friends with that are just super into games. I don't want to mention any full names, but, like, we're friends with a guy named Sam.
Yeah.
He is so into games in a way that, like, not just, like, some people can be into games in, like, a bad way, just playing it all the time. Mm-hmm. But he's into games in the style of, like, he knows the story of all of them. He can explain the story and what it means. He's a filmmaker also, so, like, he goes into what the... Like, I really appreciate how much... He was the one that got me into Resident Evil.
Okay.
And
cool.
I really appreciated how he, like, explained the story without spoiling it and, like, getting me into it and exciting me about it. People like that who... that's one of the main reasons I like games, are, like, the unique way of telling stories. I'm really excited for... We all know Cyberpunk 2077 is about to come out, and I actually got a message, like, 2 minutes ago. They delayed it again.
Oh.
Until November.
That's pleasant.
But oh well.
Okay.
Games like that where, like, the whole point of stories or, like... Or the whole point of video games, even though some people are like, oh, you play video games, so you just waste your life. It's... I mean, like, if you do it responsibly and don't just play Fortnite every day.
Right.
Like, there are some really awesome stories that you can get out of it. And that's... The goal, at least with, like, game development, is telling a story like that.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And that you would bring Sam up is good because, well, first of all, I kind of want to plug him a little bit because he's made a few really good video essays. I don't know if he has any out anymore. He might have privated them, but if I can find access to some of them publicly, I will put some links to them in the description if I remember. But you'll probably hear him on the show at some point. I would like to have him on, but he's just such an intelligent speaker when it comes to culture, when it comes to movies, games, music. Like he's kind of a go-to person for me if I want to legitimately have a discussion about a piece of art. Mm-hmm. You know, an intelligent discussion. So,
no, dude, the way he explains certain games and movies, like the best part about them, without just like explaining the story, is awesome.
Exactly. Yep. And, just a few days ago, I was hanging out with him, and we talked about, like, the new Last of Us game that's coming out soon, and all I had heard from anybody was, oh, it's going to be bad, like, this is the story, it's going to be really bad. And then he just had so many unique perspectives to give, and he was informed on all the perspectives that there are, and he was able to evaluate them, and I was like...
Has he played it? Do you know?
It's not out yet.
Isn't it? I thought it came out recently, a few days ago.
I don't think so.
Guess not.
Not that I know.
I'll hit him up, see if he wants to play it.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That is cool.
But yeah, he's just a good resource for that. So anyway, maybe you'll see something for him. How would you feel about a regular gathering once every month or once every 2 months, maybe, for game developers or even just game hobbyists in Columbus, with a focus on a little bit more of a professional atmosphere?
That'd be cool.
More networking.
That would be very cool. The only problem with that is...
there aren't too many.
Would you have more than 3 people there?
Exactly.
Because, I didn't mean to interrupt, but, with music, you can get... everyone in the city enjoys music, but there are hundreds, maybe even thousands of people that enjoy it so much to not just create, but just, be involved. You could go to that, even though you don't make music, you're involved in music. Games so much... There's a lot of people in the city that enjoy games, but enough to go to an in-person meeting. That's a good question.
And the solution, I think, to the demographic problem is to open it up to everyone that could contribute to any part of the development of a game.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm talking visual artists. I'm talking about musicians that can create soundtracks for games. Talking writers, as well as game developers themselves, but people who could interview people about game, just maybe a set of events where, okay, hear me out. I'm kind of throwing this out as we're talking, but let's say there's a monthly networking event, right? What if, for every year, each of the 12 months that it happens has a specific sector that it's focusing on. So, first one, music. Second one, comedy. Third one, gaming. Fourth one, brewing. I don't know. Something like that.
That's pretty cool.
But it could be it's an all-around networking event. Each one has that theme. At the gaming one, the same people that could be there for the other ones are still going to be there, only they're talking to each other to focus on contributing to the parts that they could contribute to in a video game.
That's actually a good question. That's a good point. So, we kind of already have some style of that, we have Arts Fest and a bunch of stuff throughout the year. But something like that is a good plan. And we talked about that before we turned the mic on, how, a lot of people don't think video games are art. But then one guy I like to quote always talks about, well, if you took any individual part of the video game, the music, the cover art, the characters, and put them in a museum, they wouldn't stand out at all.
Is that from Gandhi?
From Gandhi? Yeah, I think so. Good meme. But
it's my favorite Obama quote.
That's my favorite Obama quote. Wow. Winston Churchill actually said that about video games. No, but that's from a guy named Scott Wozniak. He actually lives in Ohio, but he has some awesome YouTube videos, 1 million subscribers at this point. Anyway.
Very cool dude.
Very cool dude. So
very good.
But then if you put all the the art pieces from video games together, somehow people complain and say it's not art.
Exactly. Yep.
So that's a good question. If you bring people together for a music conference, visual design conference, and then a video game conference, everyone can come together and kind of make this beautiful thing. Something like that. I don't know.
Well, when you put loot boxes in it, it's not art anymore.
There you go. Just put. If you entice kids into gambling, then it's not art anymore.
Well, when it's kids gambling, that's the art part. That's what actually nothing else is art about it.
Nice. I love it.
Jesus, I could talk about that for a while, but we're not going to.
That's something I'm excited to see. What happens? I don't mean to bring it up and keep talking about it, but what happens in terms of how the law gets involved in that? Because EA is a EA like putting loot boxes for like a Star Wars game is not illegal.
Well, didn't they have something about that in, like, UK or something? Like, didn't the Parliament rule about
something like that. I like to see
like,
a lot of...
Don't do that.
Don't do that. It's Tuesday. Oh, my God. Anyways, Wow, that was pretty funny. There's a lot of I'm excited to see, like, a lot of people finally getting into, like, talking about video games in not just, like, in the 90s, there was, like... old geezers in the Senate going like, what's this thing you call an interactive movie? And they don't know, like, oh my God, it's causing kids to go be violent. And a bunch of stuff like that. But I'm excited there's things like, in Europe, I don't remember, I think it was just the EU, started to talk about Valve and, like, digital game sales, where if you wanted to sell, like, if you buy a video game in a hard copy, you can sell it to a friend. With digital games, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But there's a proposal in the EU to force Valve to give people, like, a code that you can sell your friend your used game. Your used digital game.
I've never heard about that.
That would be super cool, because right now there's a problem with, like you've seen Grand Theft Auto 5 is coming to the PS5.
Yeah.
Which means that is 3 generations of video game consoles. People have had to buy this game 4 times, including PC. People have had to buy a $60 game 4 times.
Yeah.
That's kind of stupid. And then, of course, if you want your friend to play it, you can't just borrow it. They need to buy it.
Innovation.
Innovation, yeah.
Innovation.
I mean, technically, they need money somehow. And I mean, that's a good argument, but also things like pushing companies to give people like DRM, digital rights management's rights.
Yeah.
To do stuff like that, to own the digital game. Stadia. Okay.
Can't own your games.
We can have a whole conversation about Stadia. Anyways.
GTA 5 is only the highest grossing piece of media of any kind ever.
That's actually true.
Yeah.
That's one.
Shark cards, boy.
If anyone asks for a fact, and like you don't have any facts if anyone asks for a fact that they don't know, like you can guarantee they don't know, that's unbelievable, just throw that out.
Yep.
Did you know that Grand Theft Auto 5 is the highest grossing piece of media, any piece of media of all time
ever? That
is ridiculous. Higher than like any Pokemon game, higher than like any Hello Kitty or anything crazy popular. It's just Grand Theft Auto 5. That is ridiculous. Of course, they're still milking it because it makes a lot of money.
Well, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't even like it that much, to be honest.
See, I love it just because it was, like, my first, like, full game. Besides like, a multiplayer, like, World at War thing.
Yeah, that's a nostalgia factor, for sure.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Looking back on it, it is kind of lazy. Like, the storyline is cool. I like the 3 characters and how they interact, but it's, compared to the older ones, it's, like, not very good.
Yeah. But it was very groundbreaking in the way that it handled open worldness, I would say. So,
I mean, it was from 2013, and it is a massive, like, actual size of New York City map.
Yep.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. You can't beat that. No. I mean, you can now, but, like, back then, you know... Yeah.
That's
Minecraft's bigger. Minecraft's bigger.
Minecraft's bigger.
We
we could talk about procedurally generating stuff that makes it bigger, but
oh man, no. For No Man's Sky, they specifically designed 14 quintillion planets. I watched them do it. It was cool.
There's like 10 people that worked on the game, and they did each one.
Every pixel. They put every pixel in there, man. It was pretty cool.
I have a weird request.
Okay.
Can we pause real quick? I should go to the bathroom.
Oh, do the same.
Edit.
So after all that gamer talk,
gamer talk,
I have a professional question for you. And this is something that I like to hear everybody's creative process and how they keep themselves on top of things. And I was just wondering, what's your process for keeping yourself accountable and saying, hey, I'm going to put in these couple hours a night, you know, because that is a lot. I want to know what's keeping tabs.
So, that's a good question. Originally, I did things like Trello and kept notes of like, hey, I need to do this by this date. I need to do this by this date.
Looking at Trello right now.
There you go. Yeah, shout out Trello. The only problem with it is that like I don't know what I'm going to be doing next in terms of like if I put on Trello, finish the landscape or finish this character's design. I don't know, like, if I do that by this date, I don't know what I need to do next, because half the time I find something in between the two, where I'm like, oh, wait, no, I need to finish this first.
Yeah.
And so, like, I started doing Trello for the first few weeks, and I realized that I was never hitting any deadline, even though I was continuously finishing things. So I figured that wouldn't be the best.
Okay. Yeah, I see exactly what you mean.
For a lot of creators, that's like the best thing to do. Like if you're a movie maker, artist in other ways, you can say like finish this by this date or learn to do this by this date. And it is an awesome tool. I just found that it wasn't the best for me, so I actually don't really keep much notes. I just do it. Like every time I sit down and I know what I want to start focusing on, and then by the end I usually end up finishing something else.
Okay.
But no matter what, things get done. The biggest influence to like keep me on top of things and make sure I don't forget about it is actually this show, because I put this on my calendar today, of course. I put like Gap Street interview on this day on my calendar, and every once in a while, of course, you get those moments where you're like, it's not going to turn out to be anything, let me drop it and forget about it. And then I'm like, okay, but I already scheduled to be on Gap Street, so I kind of need to have something done. So this was a huge influence of like keeping me on top of things. And I probably wouldn't have continued as much as I have if it wasn't for this interview. So that's cool.
I'm glad that helped you out. Very
of course.
Cool. And off the air, we will schedule another episode.
Of course, for the future.
Yes, we will.
But you kept texting me. You're just like, it's okay if you don't want to come on. Like, I can find someone else. And I was like, Cory, shut up. I need to do this.
I'm just too nice. I can't let you drop your dreams, my guy.
Drop my dreams.
Can't do it.
Never.
Nope. So, okay. That's a good answer. Very cool. What are some aspects of game development that to non-game developers, to the layperson,
The plebs,
might not seem that significant or may not be as appreciated for the amount of work that goes into it?
I'm actually going to answer that with like a reverse part. Something that I thought would take forever and actually didn't take any time at all is like landscape design and the way, not the way it looks, because like the way a game looks does take a lot of finality, like finishing like lighting and like shadows and like how we're gonna put fog and things like that.
But you're talking about just like the skeleton of it.
Yeah, like the landscape, where trees are going, where the road's gonna be going. I'm of course gonna be changing things in the future, but like especially in modern games. In older games it was different. You'd need to do everything step by step by hand, pretty much. But now you can literally say like, oh, here's a rock, press a button, and it'll put hundreds of them randomly all over the map.
Oh.
Here are my trees. Scatter them like a random forest. Make sure you don't. There's a program in it where you can basically like scatter trees. Make sure that you don't put trees over my road, but just scatter the trees to make it look like a random forest.
And can you like put a space over the road that says like, hey, don't do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
The way I did it actually is kind of the opposite. I just scattered trees over everything and then erased it where I didn't need it.
Okay, cool. And was there like an eraser tool where you could
pretty
just
much.
okay. Cool.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, I mean that I thought would take forever.
Yeah.
And it's actually relatively easy. Of course, there's in certain games it's much harder. Like in space design games, like it's there's not just a landscape. You need to design like 3D space and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a lot easier than I thought. Things that would be harder is probably triggering things to happen at the right time. Like, you know, when you play a game and like something happens when you walk into a certain room, or like music changes, or there's a jump scare or something like that. That's pretty easy to do in terms of like if I want to trigger a jump scare, you can pretty much put like an invisible line on the map, and when your character crosses the line, it triggers this thing to happen. But it's always screwed up. Like you can always find ways around it. Like in what I've tested is if I put like a line and then music changes or something happens, there are always ways to find a way around it. Like your character can go under it, over it, around it, and then if that happens, turns out you just missed an entire super important part of the game, and then you can't continue. That's like a massive bug.
And that problem still is evident in some like AAA games these days.
Yeah.
You
or
know,
like
yeah.
Actually, I was playing Wolfenstein like 2 nights ago. The first Wolfenstein, or the first remake of the Wolfenstein games from like 2016, and I ran into that where to finish a level you need to like eliminate like a robot or whatever, like one of those robot drone things, and it went into the terrain on accident, and so I couldn't shoot it, I couldn't get rid of it, and I could not finish it. So then of course it turned out it was a lot harder. I had to like get rid of some mods that I added, and it fixed it. But things like that, basically fixing small issues, a lot of those problems are going to come down to like the end of the development. Like that, we talked about Cyberpunk just got delayed again. In the message, I was reading it while we took a little break there. and they said that the game is finished, but the next literally like 8 months of development are just gonna be
bug fixes,
fixing stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is that's
sounds about right.
I haven't reached that stage, but I'm worried that like there's a lot of stuff that I won't be able to fix. So we'll see.
That's also a significantly larger game than what you're going for.
Of course, yeah.
Like that's gonna have an enormous world.
That's true.
So I wouldn't be too concerned about it, but at the same time, like it's definitely something to consider.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. Is that all you wanted to say on that topic?
Yeah, pretty much. There's a lot of stuff that's like, of course, super hard, but like you'd think it would be hard anyways. It's not like surprisingly hard. Like characters, you have to add like to get characters to walk the way you want to walk. You pretty much have to add like virtual bones, and you add virtual bones and joints, and then you tell like the software, okay, the leg can't move this past this point, so you can't make the leg go past 180 degrees. And then that's what like you basically have to teach this guy to walk.
Wow.
That's how you make a walking character. And luckily for me and every modern game developer, pretty much every modern like game engine,
mm-hmm.
yeah,
already has something like that in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't need to like do anything crazy. It has like a default character.
Very cool. Did you have any other topics that you would like to cover today?
Not really. I think we talked about... I wanted to bring some stuff up about PT, but I think we talked about that enough.
Fair enough. Okay. How can people find you and support your work?
So we talked about this a little bit before. I actually don't have... Besides like my personal social media, which I don't really use much, I don't have any place where I talk about this, which is probably not the best option. But... I mean, the goal of this game is not to get super rich and famous and sell a bunch of copies. It's just to make something cool. So as I get further into it and develop more, I will most likely make like social media and like start to make more advertising stuff. But that will be further down the line. So right now, pretty much none.
Okay.
But there will be some.
Once those avenues are created, I'll go ahead and throw them in the description of this episode,
Cool.
just so people can find whatever pages they need to find on social media for the game itself. So we'll make sure people can find it.
Yeah.
It'd be very cool.
That'd be cool. Hopefully we'll have a second episode before it comes out, but
yeah,
we'll see.
We'll make sure that happens.
Nice.
It'd be cool. Do you have any last minute shout outs to make?
Shout outs. Shout out to Cam. He came up with the idea originally. He was like, "Well, what if this should be a cool game?" And I was like, "Oh, nice." And then that's how it started. Then
Good me.
Yeah, good me. Then beyond that, not really much. I already shouted out Sam for showing me Resident Evil, because the new Resident Evil games are like a huge influence that I didn't really talk about. But beyond that, not really.
Okay.
Shout out to Amanda for keeping me straight on doing the stuff. She always asks me, "How's it going?"
Very cool.
Nice.
Always good to have somebody checking in, keeping updated.
Of course.
Awesome.
Shout out to Cory for keeping me on task. Because like I said, I probably would have forgotten about it if it was not for the thought of, oh shoot, what if I go on Gab Street and have nothing? So yeah.
Okay. Thank you for coming on this week.
Of course, it was fun.
Really fun. I've had it booked for a few months now, so been looking forward to it.
We'll book another one soon.
Yes, we will. Catch us next Wednesday morning with whatever episode happens to come out. It might be one that was recorded before this. I don't know. We'll see. Could be.
Could be.
Could be chronologically not making sense at all. But, that's just, as Sam goes, so it goes.
So it goes.
So it goes.
How it be.
It's how it be sometimes. Catch us next week. And we will be coming at you with... We are actually booked through almost the end of December. So if you are looking for an interview on this show, please reach out to us at gabstpodcast@gmail.com. Send us an email there. Tell us what you're all about. Let us know what you would like us to interview you about, and we will definitely consider you for the show. Go support CCCG. The Columbus Creative... Oh, Emerson gave $100 to this, by the way. So thank you very much for helping support Columbus as a creative community.
Go support it.
So basically, and I'll put a message about this at the beginning of the episode as well, but Columbus Creatives COVID Grant, if you haven't heard about it already, is an initiative started by Gab Street and Ravenshood Music Group. That's Joseph Keith. If you haven't listened to his music, it's very good. It is a fundraising initiative designed to target and alleviate financial pressure on the creative community in Columbus caused by the COVID crisis. So essentially, there are a lot of performing artists that no longer have crowds to perform to, and there are a lot of people who, have to sell things in person that cannot do that as well anymore, and there are just a lot of people that are hurting financially. So all of this money is going to go toward people like that who have been hurting the past few months, and the more it gets, the more people get the money. So we've received, as of the recording of this episode, $935 total for the fundraiser. If you feel strongly about the cause, please consider donating to it, and if you can't donate, the best thing you can do is share with your friends. Somebody has $5-10 to throw. So we appreciate any and all the help. So, with that being said, thank you for listening this week. We will catch you next week. But